In some ways, Yantel mused, it would be easier to understand these people if they were shouting. Back home, someone would have shoved someone by now, and someone else would be holding them back and trying to talk sense. Here, the crowd was as damp as the day was. He felt guilty for that thought as soon as it crossed his mind. Kejek was doing her best, but she'd basically said the same thing 3 times now. It was like the sandfishers were so scared they didn't know which way to run. He'd seen it with rabbits from time to time. To be honest, he'd faced the Druge himself, and they even scared his ancestors, so he couldn't imagine how badly they were terrifying people who'd actually lived under their thumb. A movement at knee height caught his eye. He looked down. An orc boy, no more than 8 or 9 years old, tugged at the corner of his tunic. "Please, master," said the boy. "What's going to happen to us?" The lad was trembling, staring up with frightened eyes and tear-stained cheeks. Yantel squatted down next to him. "It's going to be all right," he lied, with a broad smile, putting one hand on the lad's shoulder. "I think you're just going to have to move west for a little bit while we sort the Druge out." The boy flinched and bit his lip, eyes welling with tears. Yantel remembered then that these people never named the Druge, always referring to them by euphemisms, and cursed himself for his stupidity. He wasn't good at being reassuring. He wished Eft was here. He was better at these kinds of situations. Thinking of Eft gave him an idea. He reached into one of the pouches at his belt and pulled out a piece of leather thong with a tooth hanging from it. More of a fang, really. Eft had given it to him as a gift on the last night of Worth. He weighed it in his hand for a moment. A surge of anger went through him, directed at the Druge. He heard a distant voice at the back of his head, shouting at him to stop messing around with these people and go immediately east and kill as many of the enemy as he could with his bare hands. He ignored it. His grandfather always seemed to think that problems could be solved by punching them. Moving carefully, so as to not spook the boy, he hung the tooth around the youngster's neck, explaining as he did so the same reassuring voice he used when talking to a trapped goat. "This was a gift from someone I care about a lot. He gave it to me during the night of Worth. It's a token for me to carry out into the world, and then the next night of Worth I'll pull it out and tell stories about it. One of the human priests blessed it for me. You know what that is?" The boy shook his head, eyes wide. His tears had dried. It's a special thing that the humans do." Yantel floundered slightly. "When they call up the spirits of their ancestors, I think." Yantel hoped there were no actual preachers around to hear him mangling the way. Again, Eft or Kejek would have known exactly what to say, but he didn't really grasp how any of this worked. He never bothered to ask. "This priest called up a hero called Ingatan," he extemporized, and asked her to watch over the necklace and help whoever wears it. The boy looked down at the necklace with wondering eyes. "The tooth came from a wolf our eldest son killed in the winter that'd been hurting our goats," he said, with a hitch of pride in his voice. "It reminds me of home and of my family, of the importance of not giving in to bullies. I think they'd both want you to have it." The orc child held the tooth in one hand, staring down at it. His body was rigid and he'd stopped blinking. Yantel was suddenly worried. He glanced up towards Kejek, but she was busy explaining, as patiently as she could for the 4th time, that if they stayed here, they'd most likely be slaughtered by the Druge within the week. The boy still hadn't moved. Yantel poked him gently with his finger, and then, again, a little harder. The lad suddenly blinked 3 times, rapidly. He closed his fist around the tooth, his face suddenly very serious. "We should kill them," he said, in a matter-of-fact way. "All of them. All the Druge." He said the last word quietly and stumbled over it. But he still said it. Yantel blinked several times rapidly himself. Yes," he said at last. "Yes, that's exactly what we should do. Yes. We need to show them we aren't afraid of them." The boy was talking, but there was a questioning lilt in his tone. Yantel couldn't shake the suspicion that he wasn't talking to him. "Or else they'll think they can take everything from us. The big warrior straightened up and patted the boy on his shoulder a few times in an awkward way, and then moved back over to the stand behind Kejek, hoping he'd done the right thing. The boy wasn't looking at him, wasn't paying attention to anything much. He just stood with his head cocked slightly, as if listening to something, and if anything, the smile on his face was getting wider. The Empire is surrounded by Orc nations, several of them living within Imperial territory. The Druj, Jotun, and the Grendel are all considered barbarians, while the Orcs of Otkadov, the Great Forest Orcs, the Sandfishers, the former Jotun thralls of the Mournworld, and the Orcs of Ossium are all foreigners. Each nation has their own agenda, which often manifests counter to the needs of the Empire. There is little constancy in international politics, and the complex interplay of politics and diplomacy can change the relations between nations in an instant. As such, the broad overviews we will talk about here represent only the state of play as it is generally understood at the start of the autumn equinox. This Winds of Fortune only covers some of the Orc nations. Developments involving the great powers of the world are detailed on the wiki, and the matters involving the human nations surrounding the Empire are also detailed on the wiki. The Sandfishers. The Sandfisher tribe, formerly of Ossium, have begun to settle into Misericord, the region of Holberg ceded to them by the Imperial Senate. The new market has been commissioned by Tristan of Exile's End, and though work hasn't yet started on it, Leonora von Holberg has had great success encouraging the citizens of Holberg to provide substantial support for the Sandfishers to help them get established. This material support has been gratefully received by the Sandfishers and put to good use, building basic shelters for them to dwell in, as well as using the wealth to buy essential tools that they need to survive. A small school has been established to teach not only their children, but also many of their adults basic skills, especially literacy and numeracy. Likewise, a basic hospital has been established where a small number of Sandfisher healers can work with volunteers from the Holberg University of Medicine. The Orcs' gratitude is genuine and heartfelt, and it's clearly working to break down their suspicions of their wealthy city-dwelling neighbours. Skywise Rakana also works to provide support for the Sandfishers from the Imperial Orcs. This is harder to achieve since Skarsund is so much further away, but the benefits are still substantial. Crucially, it gives Rakana an opportunity to discuss faith with the Sandfishers. He works hard to convince the Sandfishers that there is a hope for a better fate than the oblivion of the howling abyss, that those who strive for the virtues might hope for something more, to reach across the abyss to join with the ancestors. Like the thralls of the Mournworld, the Sandfishers believe in reincarnation, but unlike the Western Orcs, these people seem much less wedded to their beliefs. The people of Holberg have already given the Sandfishers hope for a better life in this world, which makes it easier for Rakana to convince them to hope for something better in the next. Meanwhile, Caspar Yakovich von Holberg is working to spread knowledge and acceptance of the virtues. On previous occasions when the Empire has attempted to bring the way to people, they've faced some resistance. Whatever the reason, Caspar finds no such problems here. He finds the Sandfishers receptive and ready to listen. They are deeply impressed by the power of auras, which they regard as an extraordinarily powerful magic, similar to the miasmic terror that the Druj raise wherever they go. Some of the priests helping Caspar report that it's almost going too well. The Sandfishers are fascinated by the idea of virtues, and though it's clear they do not yet believe it, they are intrigued by the idea that the virtues might help them to cross the abyss to avoid both eternal oblivion and the horrors of reincarnation. A handful of wary Sandfishers even allow Caspar to place personal auras on them, though their positive experience quickly result in demand for auras exceeding the possible supply of Liao. Some of the priests working with Caspar are moved to tears by their experiences among the Sandfishers. In some cases, where the Orcs are directly exposed to auras of virtue, it seems that they are experiencing feelings of pride, confidence, and self-worth for the first time in their lives. Some of them struggle to process the experience, especially when the aura runs its course. After 3 months, everyone involved in bringing the virtues to the Sandfishers reports the same thing. they appear genuinely interested and enthusiastic to learn more. They have no problem viewing the virtues as deeply powerful spiritual forces, albeit they don't seem to be able to distinguish between them and the mundane auras of the kind created using magic. The benefits for the sandfishers are slow but steady. With each passing day, they are growing in ambition and pride. The Druj have spent decades crushing the sandfishers' spirits. The Empire seems on course to reverse that destruction within a matter of years. The Eastern Threat. Unfortunately, the frantic pace of spiritual progress grinds to a halt when the news of the Druj invasion of Holberg reaches them. The new confidence gives them some hope that they will find a way to flee once more into the face of the Druj assault, but it's clear that they are deeply worried. When asked about the attack, they say that it was too much to hope for that the Druj would simply let them go. They believe that the Druj have come to Holberg to punish them more for attempting to escape than for siding with Imperials. Any sandfishers that fall into their clutches will face weeks of agonizing torture and then death. Despite the progress made, the sandfishers are simply unable to believe that the Empire might find a way to stop the Druj from attacking them. They acknowledge that the Empire has given them land and more resources than they've ever known, but they struggle to conceive of anyone fighting the Druj. So the idea of someone fighting the Druj to protect them is simply too much. If the Empire are unable to help, and the sandfishers are right that the Druj are here to punish them for fleeing, then it'll make progress in the future much more difficult for those that survive. Their plan appears to be to hide. It's perhaps not the best of plans, but it's not like they have anywhere to go or any way to resist the Druj advance. Their hope, and it is clear that they are hopeful, is that those who are successful and escape the Druj's wrath will be able to emerge once the Druj have lost interest and moved on and pick up their current lives. If the Empire are able to turn back the Druj advance, then it would be a great step forward in relations with the Sandfishers, giving them confidence that they might finally be safe from the Druj in Misericord and putting them even more in the Empire's debt than they already are. The missing musicians. While the matter of the Druj invaders is one for the Imperial Military Council to address during muster, there's another matter concerning the Sandfishers that may be of interest to Imperial heroes. Some have made a point of visiting the Sandfisher camps near the river. With the news of the Druj incursion spreading through the Orcs, the soldiers have been told that a small group of fishers, distressed by rumours of the Druj coming to punish them, have disappeared into the woods to hide. Among their number were several respected musicians, rare sandfishers with the ability to create music and raise spirits and remember the history of the tribe. Heading across Misericord, scouting forward movements of the Druj, some war scouts report that they believe they know where these sandfishers are. Sounds of violins playing mournfully and the voices of orcs were heard at Grafler's old camp. The scouts were unable to get close. A supernatural force interfered with their attempt to reach the sandfishers. They report a strange crimson glow that stopped them in their tracks, filling them with a terrible sense of doom. One of the war scouts, a magician with some understanding of astronomancy, is of the opinion that the area has become the lair of a tulpa. The good news is that the area is not in the path of the Druj forces, nor are there any Malum Orc patrols reported in the area. A conjunction of the Sentinel Gate has been identified by the League Egregore. Given their involvement with the Sandfishers, it is likely that Skyways Rakana, Leonora van Holberg and Kaspar Yakovich von Holberg will want to discuss how best to take advantage of this opportunity to help the Orcs of Misericord. The conjunction is going to Grafler's old camp, Misericord, in Holberg. It'll happen at 2300 hours on Saturday. It's for 16 people and should last around 30 minutes. However, an accessibility note. This is a high-threat skirmish. It is designed to be tense and carries in-character risks. Out of character, it's been rated Combat Unlikely, which is our lowest combat rating. Please ask a referee or an egregore for more details on the location and type of threat if you need information to work out if it meets your access needs. It will be run in the woods after dark, so everyone attending should bring a source of light. A dream of prosperity. During the summer solstice, Bartimius raised a statement of principle calling for the Prosperity Assembly to bring understanding of the virtue to the sandfishers. So far, the orcs have focused more on the virtues of pride and ambition, useful virtues for helping them to understand that their lives can be improved. With the Druge threatening to murder every sandfisher as they can find, it's perhaps not the best time to be worrying about spiritual instruction. But, nonetheless, there are priests who have heard Bartimius's words and been inspired by them. The sandfishers have some understanding of prosperity already, and that has already made it harder for anyone to take advantage of them in matters of trade. Bartimius's statement, however, does not only focus on the orcs themselves, but also on the human inhabitants of Holberg, reminding them of the importance of recognizing and rewarding hard work. As a statement that promotes virtue over profit, it's not surprising that it's received attention given the previous mandates from the Prosperity Assembly, some of them also by Bartimius, and statements encouraging the accountability of the bourse and, by extension, the merchants of the Empire, such as that of Onan of the Chantry, supported by the Assembly during the previous summit. The proposed mandate reads as follows. The Prosperity Assembly believes that it is vital that not only the sandfishers but all who deal with them respect the first tenet of prosperity. We send this priest with 50 doses of liao to urge both foreign and imperial citizen to set prosperous prices and trade fairly so that all may claim the just rewards of their labours. If the Prosperity Assembly enacts this mandate, and doing so will require a greater majority thanks to the intervention of the Wisdom Assembly and the Sword Scholars, then not only the sandfishers, but those imperial citizens dealing with them will be urged to engage in fair trading practices. Assuming the mandate is successful, it'll build on the successes achieved by Caspar Yakovich von Holberg, and will increase the sandfishers' understandings of the teachings of prosperity. Perhaps more importantly, it'll also reinforce the importance of dealing fairly with the sandfishers among the people of Holberg. It will discourage League citizens from engaging in exploitative activities or taking advantage of the sandfishers' relative naivety. It will have the added effect of encouraging some of the followers of the Little Mother to reach out to the sandfishers, creating the possibility of establishing a missionary presence among the orcs, reinforcing the importance of prosperity ahead of other virtues. During the summer solstice, a warband of elite Jotun came to Anvil under the leadership of accompanied Jarl Gear. Accompanying them was the Jotun Godi Alawang. The Godi accepted the 200-throne Weregild agreed with the mediators of Wintermark. In accordance with Jotun tradition, the blood price owed for the deaths of the Jotun warriors slain during the destruction of the meeting place is considered settled. During the Godi's visit, the Imperial Consul Skywise Fal made a request for permission to send builders through the Jotun territory of Semisuak in order to build a new meeting hall for use as an embassy between the Empire and the Jotun. In the months following the summer solstice, a warband of Jotun journeys to the gates of Atalak, where Jarl Sigrun Emblason delivers the judgment of the Queen of Kalsi. With the destruction of the meeting place, that chapter in the relationship between the Jotun and the people of Wintermark has come to an end. One does not easily replace a thing of such storied worth. It was not the stone itself that had value, but the understanding it had represented. The Jotun will grant no safe passage to imperial citizens through Semisuak, nor will they assist in the replacement of the meeting stone. Skywise Fal is an imperial orc. If he wishes to build a great hall, then it should be built in Skarsind, on the edge of the current border between Kalsi and the Empire. Build it in Parkanan's Pass in Skarsind, if you must build such a thing. But the Jarl goes on to make clear that this is not an embassy. If this is intended as a peace offering, then the Jotun reject it. If this is a place set aside for meeting, then, for now, it will stand empty. When the Jotun are ready to talk to the Empire as equals, they will send messengers to the hall. Until then, the war will continue. The hall would be a folly, requiring at least 45 wains of white granite and 15 wains of weirwood, requiring 120 crowns in labour costs and taking 3 months to build. It would have no effect until such time as the Jotun chose to engage in diplomacy with the Empire, something that does not seem to be on the cards any time soon. The Thralls of Semisuak. Following the summer solstice, a daring raid was launched against the Pride of Icus in northern Semasuak. Many Imperial heroes accompanied their warbands deep behind enemy lines to strike at the Jotun. Some of those who've returned from the frigid wastes in the north have brought with them peculiar stories. Stories that hint that some of the people of Semasuak are fighting against their orc conquerors. There is talk of escaped thralls approaching scouts in Semasuak with news of an opportunity to strike a serious blow against the Jotun. According to these thralls, there's a chance to assault a particularly high-status group of Jotun deep behind enemy lines, who they are confident will be both unaware and unprepared. One of the thralls has made their way to Anvil with information about this opportunity, confident that the runes Gram and Ul will ensure a conjunction of the Sentinel Gate. That will allow heroes of the Empire to assist them in their planned assault. The former thrall is particularly interested in talking to members of Hendel Hearth, who they say have helped them in the past. As soon as they reach Anvil, they will seek out the Wintermark encampment and the Hendel Hearth. Some of those crossing the territory reported peculiar incidents of the rune Neve etched into old trees and occasional stones, particularly those that watch over the routes frequently travelled by Jotun patrols. There are few actual woodlands in Semasuak, and most of them are near Suak Halls. Where those odd runes are discovered, scouts have apparently found evidence of serious violence done to occupied settlements by unknown assailants. Signs of homes burned and stories of soldiers lost in the sparse woodlands where the signs are most common. Someone, or something, is hunting the Jotun in Semasuak, it seems. Reports have also emerged that the Jotun have been putting thralls to work gathering mana from sites in Semasuak. Scouts in the area have reported groups of labourers escorted by heavily armed and armoured guards. It's not clear what the Jotun want this much mana for, but there may be an opportunity for Imperial heroes to disrupt their schemes. A report has been compiled for the War Scout, who will know more once the summit starts. It is believed that the Wintermark egregore has identified at least 2 conjunctions of the Sentinel Gate that would bring Imperial heroes near the areas where these mana-gathering expeditions are apparently operating. Both mana sites are near the locations of former Wintermark halls, and there are likely to be thralls or former thralls in the area who might be able to provide information about what's going on to any Imperial heroes who venture to the sites. Finally, a small group of winterfolk, ex-thralls of the Jotun, have again made the arduous journey from Semasuak to Anvil. They've visited Anvil before in the summer, where they traded goods loaded from the Jotun for support in their campaign of resistance. They've made no secret of their maggotry and are looking for anyone prepared to give them the tools to fight the Jotun oppressors in return for their stolen goods. It's not clear when they will arrive, but apparently they've expressed an intention to again deal with the Navarre rather than their fellow winterfolk. Perhaps understandable given the traditional Wintermark view of people who loot their fallen opponents. There are 2 conjunctions. The first is at Stag Fount, Suak Fount in Semasuak. That's at 14:55 on Saturday and for 20 people for 20 minutes. The second conjunction is Asiat's Hollow in Stark, Semasuak. That's at 15:55 on Saturday for 20 people and should last again 20 minutes. The Thule. During the summer solstice, a treaty was agreed upon following a productive meeting in the Caucus Forum of Lashinar between representatives of Otkadov and the Empire. The terms of the treaty are such that the Empire has managed to secure the freeing of almost 3,000 Imperial citizens who've been held as slaves in the lands of the Thule. These land slaves are the least valuable to the Thule, often being used to work farms, forests and mines. In addition to the freeing of the land slaves, the treaty also guarantees the return of the Navarre artisans taken in the fall of Trajan in return for the Sun Gold Pass. The Thule have already moved a number of people into the pass, warriors, a handful of warlocks, and a large number of orc labourers. According to the Varushkan observers, they've reopened the Orichalcum mine and are bringing in large numbers of supplies and building materials. Rak, who speaks for the Dragons Undivided, has indicated that as per the treaty, the Navarre artisans will be gathered, prepared, equipped and delivered to Skogay before the winter snows make the passes between Skarsund and Otkadov impassable. He also proposes arrangements as to how the agreement to release Imperial slaves in return for thrones may be achieved.
Rak, who speaks for the Dragons Undivided, indicates that an agreement has been made with the city of gold and lead. 300 thrones are outstanding, but the dragons have agreed that the Empire need not pay the full amount in one go. All that is required is the money for the slaves be placed in a container, along with a piece of parchment signed by the ambassador to Okkodov, indicating the money is for the dragons, and then sent using the Ephesus' scales ritual. As the payment is received, so a commensurate number of slaves will be delivered safely to either Skoge in Skarsind, to Wendell's Hope in Mirkarova, or to Iversgard in Karsk. As always, they will be delivered safe and warm, after which they will be the Empire's problem. The treaty also concerned the continued defence of Ossium, and it does appear the Thule have kept to their bargain. There is a significant force of orcs in the northern part of the territory, but their patrols have been sighted all along the eastern borders. They have presented a cordial face to soldiers from the Imperial Army stationed there, the Fire of the South, the Eastern Sky, and the Golden Axe. Towards the end of the season, a small delegation, led by Grand Warlock Fiayokul, came down out of the Bonewood to visit a settlement of Lorma in an informal capacity, spending some time discussing tactics with the captains from the 3 Imperial armies. During that time, the Grand Warlock explained that the Thor would be reducing their presence in Ossium after the autumn equinox, but only temporarily. Something has come up in Skuld that required their attention. Despite this, the Grand Warlock was more than confident that the forces remaining behind, combined with the newly completed fortification in the Bonewood, would be more than enough to slow the Druge down should they attempt a counterattack, especially if the Empire maintained 2 armies of its own in Ossium. Scouts confirmed the presence of a fortification in the Bonewood, a brand new fortress built only in 6 months. There are similar reports from some of the Warden Fellowships of Karsk, indicating that the work has also been completed on the fortification in the hills of Krevsati. It appears the dragons are making good use of the immaculate architect. The Grendel. Shortly before the autumn equinox, a sleek ship adorned with finery in an Assavean style arrives in the docks of Sarvos, bearing Grendel banners. The harbour master makes clear to the dock workers and the public that the ship is expected, and the Grendel are here under a flag of truce. Speaker Morna and the orcs in his retinue travel overland from Sarvos, making good use of the blood-red roads on their way to Cassanea. Morna stops often on the way to Anvil, granting small trinkets reminiscent of the Yarmish style to the owners of inns he rests at overnight. His guard, made up of a small force of Stoneborn, seem eager to experience the sights of Anvil. Speaker Morna is due to arrive at 7 o'clock on Friday. He will journey first to the Senate building, expecting to be met there by Esteban y del Rio Blanco y Guerra. Morna has suggested that this would not necessarily have to be the only meeting of the summit, and that he could theoretically return on the second day of the summit at around 9 o'clock in the evening, should it prove fruitful. The magistrates, somewhat wearily, remind everyone that while they are in Anvil under a flag of peace, and while travelling to and from Anvil, the Grendel are protected by imperial law. The Druge. The Druge have been erratic as of late, or at least more erratic than usual. They fled the invasion of Ossium. They invaded Spiral just long enough to do something with the Black Plateau. They beat back the attempted invasion of the Barons. They are now in the process of launching an invasion of the territory of Holberg. Micha de Holberg arrived at the garrison of Holberg just 1 week before the autumn equinox. They were distraught, but after some time to calm down and with the help of a hallowed pendant, Micha explained how they had been shocked awake in their bedroom in the cabin of their parents, located in the forests of Utterlund. They went on to recount how the menacing shadows had told them that they were to visit Holberg with a demand, and an offer for the people of Holberg to take to their senator, for their senator to take to the Senate. Micha, who was apprenticing to become a forester, has refused to return to their now empty home, and has enlisted as a runner for the garrison of Holberg. The offer from the orcs of the Malum is simple. They want the Empire to give them back the Sandfishers. They understand that some Imperials feel sorry for the Sandfishers, so they're offering to release 1 Imperial citizen they hold in torment for each Sandfisher that is released to them. Should the Empire wish to go ahead with this offer from the Druge, then the Civil Service advised that the only way to achieve it would be for the Imperial Senate to declare war on the tribe, then for the general of an army to move into Holberg, make an attack order which explicitly references forcing the tribe into the Barons. The civil service estimate that there are roughly 3,000 sandfishers currently in the region of Misericord.